permanently ban Trump, Apple, Google. Hi, brainless person. Welcome to the apocalypse. Here's what we want on your mind today. Twitter and Facebook permanently ban Trump, Apple, Google, and Amazon conspire to kill Parler, and New York wants to set up concentration camps. We'll have all this for you and more in today's edition of Here's What We Want You to Think So We Can Control You, and please don't realize you're a sovereign being who can think for themselves. In the wake of what's happened at the Capitol in small business news, Twitter and Facebook have permanently banned President Trump from their platforms. Many people rejoiced at Trump's banning, while many others grieved the loss of Twitter's greatest comedian. In a statement, Twitter said the ban is because President Trump was using Twitter to incite violence. Twitter said the following two tweets were the violence-provoking ones that triggered the ban. Tweet number 1. The 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. Tweet number 2. To all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. About how these two tweets were inciting violence, Twitter said, these two tweets must be read in the broader context of what's happening in the country. So in other words, when taken out of context, these tweets are said to have provoked violence, but not when they're left within the context of Twitter, which is where Trump published them. This just in! Communication scholars all agree that taking words out of context is the most accurate way to interpret them. About the ban, Jack Dorsey couldn't be reached for comment as he was busy picking food out of his ungross-looking billionaire goatee. However, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg was reached, and when asked his thoughts about his platform using to restrict free speech, he simply responded with a smile. We're all proud of what you've accomplished, you mother Zucker. In other pro-freedom news, Parler, a censorship-free alternative to censorship-heavy Twitter, is under assault. Big Tech demanded that Parler instill the same draconian speech restrictions that users on other platforms suffer under, but Parler refused, saying it believes in free speech. Big Tech, which does not, banded together to swiftly censor Parler, an entire social media platform. They got wind that the dangerous activity of free speech was happening on Parler and wanted to step in to protect the public from it. This just in! With Big Tech banding together to censor the president, who's already censored on all mainstream media, and now silencing popular free speech platform Parler, it looks as if they have something to hide. But rest assured, Big Tech wouldn't be trying to hide something if they had something to hide. That'd be crazy. Like, they're trying to protect you. Am I supposed to say it's for their protection? I am? Playing that card again? Man, we've been playing that thing all over the place. Do you think they're still buying it? All right. It's confirmed Big Tech is in fact taking these safety measures for your protection. Google took Parler out of the Play Store, followed by Apple taking Parler out of the App Store, and then Amazon, who supplies the servers that Parler uses, kicked Parler off its servers. They took Parler off the internet. To justify its decision, Apple declared, Parler is in fact responsible for all user-generated content on its service. Now this runs contrary to the same section 230 that says a platform is not responsible for the content generated by its users. The same section 230 that protects Twitter and Facebook. But luckily Apple slammed its trillion-dollar judicial hammer down to inform the public of the new law. Parler is responsible for the content generated by its users, while Facebook and Twitter are not. It makes sense when we tell you to think it does. Big Tech's rationalization for crushing its competition was, threats of violence and illegal activity were happening on Parler with respect to the violence at the Capitol. That's a convincing statement, so much so that you're convinced to not realize that Parler doesn't have a groups function, but Facebook does, and Facebook groups were used to organize a lot of the protests at the Capitol. And with illegal activity, you also don't realize that Google is then complicit in enormous illegal activity, as Gmail is used to pass pedo porn amongst criminals. It would also be spectacular of you not to realize that these companies are monopolies, and monopolies are illegal. because they're not monopolies. Like, what are you kidding me? They're so not monopolies that 35 states have filed antitrust lawsuits against Google. Facebook has had 48 states file antitrust lawsuits against them. Apple also currently has antitrust lawsuits filed against it. And Amazon is being charged by the European Union with an antitrust lawsuit. And that's nothing. I mean, these suits allege these companies are currently operating illegally, but like, that's crazy because they're not. Because they saved the public from illegal activity happening on Parler. So, like, how could they be operating illegally? Like, they wouldn't accuse someone of doing something that they themselves are doing, but only much worse. They wouldn't do that. However, a question raised by the public. Is it a monopoly when the monopolies of Twitter, Facebook, Google, Apple, and Amazon band together to form one enormous monopoly that's capable of making anything happen on planet Earth that they want? Answer: no, that's not a monopoly either. All this monopoly talk might make you wonder what Bill Gates is. We haven't heard from him in a while, have we? Yeah. He's still over there running COVID. This just in! Human connection is still deadly. Remember, disconnection, isolation, poverty, and fear will protect you. That's all still a thing you're supposed to believe. Despite the unprecedented assault on free speech, Parler CEO John Matz said, "Our mission is free speech, democracy, and us the people having the power. The elites don't want us to be free." Here at this station, we can attest it is a baseless conspiracy theory for Parler CEO to suggest that the elites don't want you to be free. This just in! New lockdown orders are in place. Do not leave your home, and you cannot open your business or send your children to school. It's almost been a year, hasn't it? Freedom! John Matz says Parler will be back up and running soon. If that's true, you can expect even more strict lockdown orders from the elites to protect you from the mutated strains of free speech that are passed so rapidly on Parler. Maybe we'll even do a nationwide blackout. In other news, Iran is set to execute a second national wrestler for protesting against the government. Well, I guess we're not really that far behind you here in the US, are we, Iran? How we deal with free speech offenders. This just in! This is where it's going if you let it. Conspiracy theorists are suggesting free speech is a great thing, even when people have different perspectives than you. They go on with their baseless claims to suggest you can peacefully live with and even love other people who think and speak different things than you. Fact checkers have debunked these claims, citing it's better to live under fear that words spoken that you don't agree with will lead to violence. And we think living in fear feels like a way more loving way to live. These crazy conspiracy theorists' baseless claims are also unconstitutional. So much so that our constitutional scholars are combing the Constitution to find the line in the First Amendment that defines free speech as saying whatever you want, as long as you agree with us. Scholars have not found the line, yet we're moving forward with full assumption that they will. And in concentration camps are coming to America news, in New York, a bill has been proposed that would allow the state to detain people if it deems them a threat to public health. The Assemblyman Nick Perry, who sponsored the legislation, said the bill would not infringe on an individual's liberty. Our fact checkers have fact-checked this statement as true. A governor being able to determine that someone's a health risk based on their own definition of health risk, and then being able to hold that person as a prisoner for as long as they want does not infringe on liberties. In other governors acting like a dictator news, the Recall Gavin Newsom campaign now has over 1 million signatures. With a deadline of March coming up to gather the remaining 400,000 signatures that are necessary to recall him, if you're a California resident, please don't go to recallgavin2020.com and sign. That's it for today's uplifting, freedom-based news. Enjoy your day of having Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple, Amazon, and the media tell you what to think and do. Your free will is not yours anymore, but we let you think it is. Good night.